Hi, this is Dr. Sana Hashmi, and this week in my Print on China column, I analyzed how Chinese discourse is reframing the recent India Pakistan clashes war as a victory for China, not really for Pakistan, and how this narrative is being used to promote Chinese military systems, strategic model, and global influence. So, if we look into the Chinese discourse, it reveals how China sees this not as a sideshow, but as a proof of its growing military and geopolitical clout, especially in contrast to India and the West. And the this week's print column, as well as this video column, takes you inside the Chinese narrative machine and how it used the India Pakistan clashes to sell its warfighting model, flex its global reach, and quietly position itself as the rising power behind the scenes. As in, they keep talking about winning the war without fighting the short. So I think this is also a part of the process. This is also part of the narrative that they are trying to put out. And India has been a victim of that, and India is still a victim of that. And now we are seeing it through the Pakistan angle, through the China Pakistan nexus. So, while the international headlines zoomed in on the India Pakistan ceasefire, they talked about it primarily through the India China lens. Chinese digital spaces were telling a very, very different story. And according to posts on websites such as Paito, as well as social media microblogging websites such as Weibo, this wasn't just a regional skirmish. It was a clear demonstration of China's military edge, China's military influence, and according to them, it's also China's military supremacy, specifically over the West. And one Paito commentary actually claimed the headline was the all Chinese class defeated the Indian Air Force in a big way. Then another Paito commentary claimed that Chinese made fighters defeat India's ace with zero damage. So look at the confidence and look at the narrative that they're trying to portray. That it was primarily between India and China, and it wasn't really about India and Pakistan. And if you go by what they're saying in the Chinese telling, this wasn't just armed support. It was China running the whole show. And it wasn't just about selling jets, but also training pilots, also providing the strategy and stitching everything together, but behind the scenes. And this wasn't just about weapon, it was about Chinese systems, Chinese thinking, and also Chinese control. In fact, one of the commentaries also read that Pakistanis fought like us because, of course, they are training the Pakistanis, and the reason is absolutely India. And then there is no two doubt, two viewpoints about the fact that China has been preparing or assisting Pakistan to contain India, uh, to target, to attack India. And there's even this pointed question from a scholar, Yao Yuanmei, who is a professor at East China Normal University. So he asked in one of the commentaries that why could India's world made advanced weapons defeat Pakistan's single Chinese made weapon? And the answer, and I think the answer has been repeated by a lot of scholars, a lot of social media users on Chinese internet, that China is the reason behind how Pakistan held its own and Pakistan held the ground and it had China's full backing. At least this is what the prevailing narrative in China has been about the India China clashes. And across Chinese platform, the story has been consistent. And then I really haven't come across any counter narrative to it. But the answer, the narrative, the storytelling has been consistent that Chinese tech powered Pakistan's performance. So Pakistan has had China's backing. So this is something that I have seen everywhere without a fail. And fighter jets like the J-10CE and JF-17 Thunder, early warning aircraft like ZDK-03 Hongqi air defenses, nearly every critical system came from China. So I think that was not a surprise. We all have been kind of aware of this fact that China has been behind Pakistan. The threat theory is not really a theory anymore. This is a reality which India has also always been aware of. But the misinformation is rampant, not just on Pakistani social media, not just by Pakistani media, but on Chinese social media and media websites. So some Chinese posts even claim that Chinese J-10CS, that is backed by Chinese AWACS, shot down 6 Indian aircraft without losing a jet. Of course, this is all disinformation. But the secret sauce behind this is the advanced radars, according to the Chinese narrative Thunderbolt 15 missile system level coordination that, according to a number of accounts on the Chinese website, outperformed India's Rafale in detection and in range. And it wasn't just in the air, according to Chinese sources, Chinese commentary, it's also on the ground. And a number of Baidu users boasted that Pakistan's 500 Chinese VT-4 tanks outclassed Indian armor. And Chinese SH-15, how its theirs as well as AR-3 rocket launchers expanded range and firepower. But the real flex wasn't really hardware. It was all how it all worked together. And Chinese commentators actually framed the clash as a win for their systems based warfare, a model where everything from radars to missiles to command networks is designed to operate as one seamless unit. And that came from China. And India, by contrast, was seen as patching together a mix of foreign platforms and indigenous weapon system with no real integration. And this is a common narrative that I have seen on a number of Chinese websites. And as a scholar, a civil aviation analyst, Chang Chung-lin, he put it that this wasn't just Pakistan modernizing. This wasn't just about Pakistan. This was China's warfighting model in action. And from their view, India's missteps only highlighted it. They say India didn't strike AWACS or radar centers early, relied on isolated missile strikes, and essentially played into Chinese hand. I think there's not even any denying, there's not even any hiding. They are openly talking about how China was the mastermind behind it, how Chinese weapons were fighting India. It wasn't really Pakistan. And this is where it gets more interesting. To Chinese observers, this wasn't just a regional skirmish, it was a live demo. It was a sales pitch, a proof of concept. And in fact, one Weibo post wrote that this was Chinese versus Western arms, and the J10 stole the show. And also, this narrative that with Russia's arm export declining, China is stepping in. China is now becoming a reliable uh, arms seller. Now it is taking Russia's place and it's offering cheaper, time tested alternatives bundled with, of course, Belt and Road ties, Belt and Road initiative. And then um, there is a narrative that somehow it's linking Chinese arm export and the potential of it becoming a global player in weapons sales with the Belt and Road Initiative. So there are definitely signs that they're also talking about somehow militarizing the Belt and Road Initiative, or at least ties with the countries that have endorsed the Belt and Road Initiative. So also, I think there is an important aspect to it that this is not just about selling arms; it's also selling a system, a strategy, also Chinese influence, and also exporting Chinese supremacy, the idea of Chinese influence becoming uh, greater, bigger than the US. Then, according to aerospace analyst by Yu Ching, he even claimed that J-10C can match the American F-16 in avionics. But what sets it apart, he said, is how it fits into China's full spectrum combat system ecosystem. And that to him is what gives China a shot at challenging Western dominance in aerial warfare. And then now, if we zoom out, and the narrative keeps expanding, as in there are a number of arguments, narratives about what happened, but then, of course, at the center of it is China. And then they also talked about how J.D. Vance's comment about the conflict, that it is none of the US business. It is somehow in kind of leading towards the diminishing relations between the US and India. And a lot of Chinese voices took that as a sign that the West is pulling back. The West is not as supportive to India as many believed it is. And now also perhaps a lot of countries, including France, US, are going to rethink, reconsider arms deals with India. This is also one of the arguments, one of the narrative that has been propagated on the Chinese websites. But then meanwhile, China's support for Pakistan, military, strategic, symbolic, has been consistent. It has been predictable, and of course, according to them, it has been reliable as well. And then some posts even claimed and linked the entire conflict, linked China, the success, according to them, of Chinese weapons to Taiwan. One commentator wrote that our military industrial strength is at its peak right now. We now have a layered defense ready for separatist forces like Taiwanese independence. So perhaps this is also, according to them, a trailer to the West, that if they act funny. This is what they are also going to show. Perhaps a movie is going to be shown with respect to Taiwan. So now, what is the real story? In my analysis, and in fact, if we go deeper into Chinese analysis as well, this wasn't just about Pakistan. This wasn't about the so-called all-weather friendship. There wasn't any solidarity with Pakistan. There is actually no doubt left that Pakistan is was just a proxy. It has been a proxy for China that has been used by China to contain India. And I think, if at all, the recent developments have proved it further, that Pakistan has been a vehicle, Pakistan has been a proxy to just keep a check on India. And it was China proving its model works, that its training, its tactics can actually outperform the West, that it can actually shape conflicts without firing a shot itself. And that in Chinese eyes, a lot of commentators, a lot of media, social media users, that was the real victory for China. But in this version of the story, Pakistan did pull the trigger, but China loaded the gun, aimed it, and chose the moment. So for China right now, Pakistan was a vehicle, India was a testing ground, and the US and the entire, or broadly the West, was the ultimate target. So I think this is something, this is the main takeaway, that China has been backing Pakistan. China has been backing Pakistan against India. But if the West, if the international community think this is the fight between India and Pakistan and this is none of their business, I think they are really mistaken. This is China that has been demonstrating its military edge. And if the international community doesn't take this into seriously, that means the supremacy that China aims to claim and China aims to achieve is something that would actually turn into reality. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.